Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. This is a very special welcome to this service of gratitude and farewell as we celebrate the work and the artistry of Frederick Jodrey on his concluding day with us as the music director at First U. This is the 20th year of Frederick Jodry's service to First Unitarian as music director. A lot has changed in that time. When Fred came here, this congregation was just beginning the new millennium, having just survived Y2K. Peter Mayer was just about to write the lyrics to Blue Boat Home and set them to that old and beautiful melody. The world had just commemorated the 250th anniversary of the passing of Johann Sebastian Bach. Venus Williams had just become the first black woman to win Wimbledon. Bush v. Gore went to the Supreme Court and gave us George W. Bush as president. The Netherlands legalized same-sex marriage. And the U.S. Post Office made Frida Kahlo the first Latinx woman to be depicted ever on a U.S. postage stamp. There was so much that we did not know was coming. So much that unfolded in the life of this church, in our nation, in the lives of so many congregants here. In those 20 years, music has helped us. Music has helped us mourn, helped us celebrate, has grounded us, lifted us, filled this space with countless moments of shimmering beauty, of majesty, of calm, of strength, of inspiration. Fred's gifts as an organist and pianist, as a teacher and singer, as a scholar and conductor have made a difference to all of us who have received those gifts, especially to those choristers and instrumentalists who have worked closely with Fred and treasure countless moments of grace that came from making music together. This morning, we dedicate our time to celebrating Fred's music and creativity here at First U. Appropriately for one who also loves flowers and plants and is so extraordinarily gifted at gardening and arranging, even arrangements so creative and grand as to make this soaring space a bower. He has sown many seeds here, planted many beautiful things, and featured arrangements that made this space bloom with beauty for all the senses. Those good seeds he planted here will be tended with care and gratitude by all of us and all those who will come after us, that the garden, which is this church, remain vital and beautiful always.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lynn Corbel. Please join us in today's chalice lighting. This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path towards harmony, justice, and hope for all.
We have two readings this morning. The first is an excerpt from Metropolitan Diary by Joe Rogers in the New York Times from January 12th, 2004. He says, "My wife and I were in New York recently, getting to know a new grandson and packing in as much of the city as time afforded. The Guggenheim was a safe harbor against the cold winds, and the energy and forcefulness of James Rosenquist were on display to warm our souls. We noticed a large number of fathers guiding their children up the pale spiral, stopping to comment on the art and to answer questions. This was one conversation. 'Son, why is this stuff such a big deal?' 'Father, because artists and musicians are like gods. They're different from the rest of us. They help us to see things we didn't know were there.' 'Son, why is that important?' 'Father, what you learn from artists and musicians stays with you forever. It can help you to be a better person.' 'Son, okay, Dad.' It was a condensed lesson in why art is so central to our lives, and we think the young boy will remember this episode and his father's wisdom for a long time. In 17th century London, it was usual to celebrate November 22nd, the day of St. Cecilia, the patron saint of music, with a large concert for choir and orchestra. In 1692, Henry Purcell set an ode by the Irish poet Nicholas Brady, praising music and, in particular, the organ. "Hail, bright Cecilia, hail, fill every heart with love of thee and thy celestial art. 'Tis nature's voice through all the moving wood of every creature understood, the universal tongue to none of all her numerous race unknown. From her it learnt the mighty art to court the ear and strike the heart. At once the passions to express and move, we hear and straight we grieve or hate, rejoice or love. In unseen chains it does the fancy bind, at once it charms the sense and captivates the mind. Soul of the world, inspired by thee, the jarring seeds of matter did agree. Thou didst the scattered atoms bind, which by the laws of true proportion joined, made up of various parts one perfect harmony. Thou tunest this world below, the spheres above, who in the heavenly round to their own music move. With that sublime celestial lay, can any earthly sounds compare? If any earthly music dare, the noble organ may. From heaven its wondrous notes were given, Cecilia oft conversed with heaven. Some angel of the sacred choir did with his breath the pipes inspire, and of their notes above the just resemblance gave, brisk without lightness, without dullness grave. What a joy to be in the room with a choir, live. They sound terrific. It has lifted my whole day. One of the ways First You transforms love into action is by the sharing of the joys and sorrows that connect us. A candle of joy, Emily Bruce will be ordained into the Unitarian Universalist ministry on June 5th, which is really a short time away. Do stay tuned for more details. A candle of hope for Sorrel and James as they navigate the challenges of James's cancer. A candle of recognition and thanks to Mary Frappier and to myself, Reverend Roger, for the excellent interment service for Beth Ann Turney that happened this Friday. Also thanks to Lynn Bradford, Lisa Rose, and Alyssa Emerson for their presence and for their care in Beth's last days. And a candle of information that there will be a congregational meeting today in the parking lot on this terrific and beautiful day. So if you're coming, get in the car and make your way. Open the windows. My friends, in times of triumph and tragedy, we can rest in the gladness and the deep knowing that we have each other and this community to share our joys and our sorrows and all that connects our lives. Indeed, it makes all the difference. I'd like us to deepen into worship by preparing our hearts and minds for prayer and meditation. I'm going to offer some words that will be followed by a time of silence. And if you've lost someone this past year that you are remembering this morning, at the end of the meditation, please stand in silence with us or raise your hand, or in some way that's meaningful, pay tribute. To begin, I'd like to ask you to be mindful, to pay attention to your body, to where you're standing or sitting, and to let yourself relax, to let yourself feel yourself letting go and coming to the moment. Please, if you will, take a deep breath with me. And again. These words are from Greg Gilpin's Why We Sing. A sound of hope, a sound of peace, a sound that celebrates and speaks what we believe. A sound of love, a sound so strong, it's amazing what is given when we share a song. Soothe a soul, mend a heart, bring together lives that have been torn apart. Share the joy, find a friend. It's a never-ending gift that circles back again. Music builds a bridge, it can tear down a wall. Music is a language that can speak to one and all. This is why we sing, why we lift our voice, why we stand as one in harmony. Thank you, Fred Jodrey,
for all of the years of singing and song. They stay in our hearts and memories always. And may the spirit of love surround you everywhere you may go. Amen.
Growing up, our little household in rural Ohio was always filled with music. I come from a very musical family. Both my parents played the piano, and all four of my sisters were good singers. I have fond memories of singing selections from The Sound of Music in 3-part harmony when grandmother came to visit, and I was invited to play the piano for the entertainment of family guests. My father also had an interest in the organ, and to him I really owe my career in church music, for he was a remarkably prescient person for a postman from a tiny village in Ohio. After I'd studied the piano for 3 or 4 years, he said, "Young man, you should learn to play the organ. The world is full of piano players, but if you want to earn a living, learn the organ." Wise words. And so I was taken to the next little town over where there was, wonder of wonders, an actual pipe organ. And at a church willing to have a 14-year-old wild son practice after school every day. At 17, I moved on to a professor at the University of Toledo who convinced me and my totally reluctant parents to let me apply to half a dozen good conservatories, Eastman School of Music, Peabody, Oberlin. But it was the New England Conservatory that caught my interest, and the historic city of Boston. And they awarded me such a generous scholarship which allowed me to attend such a prestigious school. I had the finest of organ teachers there, wonderful fellow students, and classes in church music and in organ building to keep me on my toes. While in Boston, I became acquainted with the world of professional choir singing, something which does not exist in rural Ohio, and began a 20-year relationship with the Episcopal Church. I sang first as a countertenor at the Church of the Advent in Boston, a very smoky place on Beacon Hill, where the treasures of Renaissance choral music are heard on a weekly basis, and the standards of organ playing are out of this world. I became their assistant organist while a senior in college and prospered in this very demanding job for about 5 years. Several other things attempted to tempt me to a departure. A singing post with a vocal sextet in Vienna, a church job offer in Montreal, but I eventually moved on to my first Boston music director job while starting my own Renaissance choir, the Schola Cantorum, to keep myself involved with the type of choral music I had so grown to love. What is it about church music that I find so enthralling that I've spent most past Sundays in the 40 years at one organ console or another? Partially, I love the complexity and grandeur of the instrument, the complete individuality of every organ. There is no more majestic and exciting sound as an organ at full throttle. No other instrument can purr and whisper or thrill your very bones with vibrations. No other instrument can lead a large group of many hundred people so effectively in song. Some of my most glorious moments in church music have been really just playing hymns with a large and vociferous congregation. And as the Canadian novelist Robertson Davies once described church organists, they have such untidy hair, and they do such peculiar things with their feet. The organ is in fact a wondrous machine, in use in churches for more than 500 years, and pipe organs are incredibly long-lived machines if properly cared for. As a music historian with a strong interest in theology, it has also been a pleasure to form a partnership with many clergy members. When the relationship goes well, there is a strong link between the pulpit and the organ loft. And when the music is well chosen and well performed, moments of great transcendence are possible, where the preaching might well appeal and convince through the intellect, and the music supports those very same themes by reaching with invisible strands into the heart. As Victor Hugo once said, music puts into sound the things too silly or too profound to be expressed with mere words. And this ability to move the soul is part of why I love church music. When I came to the Unitarian Church 20 years ago, it was after a very happy stint at Trinity Church, Newport, but where the burdens of the job had become too great. Like our church here, it is a beautiful historic building with a strong music program, but managing the 2 choirs there, which each sang every Sunday, several concert series, innumerable Newport weddings, it all just felt too much on top of my teaching and conducting at Brown. I loved the liturgy, the majestic words of the prayer book full of Elizabethan idioms. But as Martha Rice Sanders reminded me recently, when queried at my interview here why I wanted to come to the Unitarian Church, I replied with perfect candor, because I can bike to work. But in a sense, as I move forward to become co-music director, returning back to Trinity Church Newport, I am going home. I came here on the cusp of my 40th birthday, and now as I stare 60 in the face next year, I find I want to return to the structure and rhythms of the Episcopal Church. My first 20 years in church music were with Episcopalians, and as one of today's anthems states so clearly, I feel as if I'm going home to a very ingrained and familiar sense of style and dignity. But really, Newport is not so far, even though you gotta cross those bridges to get there. I hope you all will come visit. It has been a lovely 20 years working here, learning about the variety of Unitarian beliefs and managing to build working relationships with all 10 ministers in these 2 decades. From our incredibly wise Minister Emeritus, James Ford, I learned my best organist joke. What is the difference between a music director and a terrorist? You can negotiate with a terrorist. Our choir is incredibly intrepid. On only 75 minutes of rehearsal a week, they have taken so many challenges that I have given them and continued to excel week after week. For me, it was a real learning curve, being willing to blend music of the Beatles with Brahms and finding Godspell songs next to my beloved Renaissance anthems. The choir here has sung plenty of Jewish music, Russian Orthodox pieces, plenty of Christian church music, but also explored the spiritual writings of Mother Teresa, Bishop Tutu, Eleanor Roosevelt, Teresa of Avila, Hildegard von Bingen, along with loads of 19th century poets, Emily Dickinson, Whitman, and Emerson. But perhaps the most challenging moment here, for one trained in trying to find the most applicable music for any sermon, came in 2006, when a certain minister was called upon to resign on charges of plagiarism. In a manner befitting Hawthorne and the Scarlet Letter, this news was to be given to the congregation in the Sunday sermon when the minister required to publicly resign from the pulpit. As an organ student, we had classes in church music, studying religious texts and discussing what strands to emphasize and how to find useful pieces for many different occasions. But what to sing for such a strange day? And somehow, I had in the back of my head the catchphrase, a small whispering voice, as a deceitful tongue and lying lips, deceitful tongue and lying lips, repeating over and over. Things which you never tried to memorize have a way of being firmly lodged in the brain. I eventually identified this text by using modern technology and Googled those words and found the phrase was from Psalm 119. It gave me a strange pleasure to sing exactly the right piece for the resignation of a plagiarist. I called out to the Lord in my distress. Deliver me, O Lord, from a deceitful tongue and lying lips. A handful of musical settings were available. However, we sang in Latin to lessen the blow, perhaps. Over the past 20 years, I've helped you purchase a new grand piano, played and performed music for your weddings and your funerals, accompanied many Brown University Medical School commencements, which happen in our grand building, and helped with all the musicales and church suppers and fundraisers. Our beloved former administrator, the aptly named Posey Kouris, taught me one of life's great lessons, the value of side rhodia, plants that grow on the side of the road. The scale of our church is enormous, and the arrangements and flowers must be large. And many of you know that my efforts in flower arranging and church decorating, paired with a certain concern that the greenery on the brown green get occasional prunings at Christmas time. One winter, I decided on an enchanted forest and erected a dozen birch and fir trees in our church for Christmas Eve. Another time, I raided an alley behind some brown dorms to make 15-foot bouquets of forsythia for Easter. And since we were singing All Rachmaninoff that particular Easter day, I quietly tucked a small gold icon of Christ behind the lilies. Perhaps the only time in the past 200 years a religious image was found within these walls. Last spring, along with Max Pounder and Sarah Bradford, I divided, begged, borrowed, moved, and planted 100 hostas, and helped see that shrubbery was planted in our new front gardens. I've weeded and watered, swept leaves off the stairs, repaired the brick sidewalks, cleaned snow off the steps, changed the light bulbs in the chandelier, and done it all with great pleasure for a parish that is still entirely dear to my heart. But there is one very important task I leave rather reluctantly unfinished. Over the past few years, our music committee had struggled with several enormous questions of how best to care for our aging organ. Dating from 1968, our 62-year-old Moeller organ has been kept in tune and in good playing shape, but has never had a serious cleaning, any repairs, or upgrades. Imagine a vintage 1968 car you owned. You kept it garaged, changed the oil in the tires, but never gave it any other maintenance. The paint is chipped and rusted a bit, the tires are a disgrace, and the less said about the spark plugs, the better. But today, this car still has no GPS. It doesn't even have seat belts. Certain parts of our organ are similarly seriously outdated. Organ pipes themselves can easily last for centuries, and this organ has more than 3,000 individual pipes. Under each pipe is a round sliver of a leather membrane, which must, by means of electricity, be inflated to allow the air to enter each pipe. And that leather is near the end of its useful life. Imagine a pair of shoes from 1968. As each of these leather bits dry out and crack, individual notes cease to play one by one until the organ is seriously compromised. 62 years of dust need to be removed from each pipe, and outdated electrical systems, which allow the organist to control rapid changes of sound, need upgrading to modern technology. I hope my successor will have the support of the congregation to carry out this most necessary work. I have left several copies of 4 repair proposals in good hands upon my departure, but I would point out the obvious. In the last 60 years, the woodwork of the tower has been painted at least 3, if not 4 times, and for the last campaign, $1.2 million were raised to care for the tower, its woodwork, and the windows. An organ project will be not quite that pricey, but almost, and the organ will start to need real attention in the next 5 to 10 years. Our organ is one of the best in the city, and it is remarkably well made to still be playing so well. It is, in fact, the single most valuable object the congregation owns, save the church building. And if you care for it well, the organ will easily last another 50 to 100 years. Every music director brings to their job a certain skill set, a proclivity and taste for certain styles of music, and a cohort of colleagues to build a vital church music program. Over the past 20 years, I've shaped the senior choir from a group of 10 or 15 singers to a group that was often double that size. It also has been a pleasure to work with many instrumentalists, including our own parishioners, and to bring together local professionals, Brown students, and at times members of community music works to adorn and enrich our services. I hope you will consider the musical education of our youth as part of the mission of the church going forward. I've enjoyed working with the community band and our youth music director to bring variety to the kinds of music we offer and to find opportunities for many people of different skill levels to participate. I trust you will choose wisely as you go through discernment to find a new music director to carry on the rich artistic traditions I inherited from Donald Dame some 20 years ago, to bring the best of sacred music to this congregation and to offer, as Bach himself put it, refreshment to the souls of those who delight in music for many years to come. It has indeed been a delight and a pleasure to me to serve this congregation for the past 20 years.
Good morning. I am Janice Okumian, the chair of the First Unitarian Music Committee, and I am here to give voice to the congregation's everlasting gratitude to Fred for the manifold gifts he has brought to our beloved community, to sing our praises to him, and to bestow upon him some tokens of our affection as we prepare to say our goodbyes. I have also seen that Victor Hugo quote that Fred already quoted. It is posted on a little card outside the door of his office at Brown. And the translation I have is, "Music expresses that which cannot be put into words and about which it is impossible to be silent." This morning, we've been hearing the language of music speak to us in our musical offerings. But I now have the harder task of putting into words our congregation's profound love and gratitude for Fred. We've been extraordinarily blessed to have a musician of Fred's caliber as our music director for 2 decades. Fred is truly a world-class musician who can sing in all registers from bass to soprano. He can play a complicated organ part with both hands and feet while also singing one of the choral parts and conducting with his head. On a typical Sunday, Fred might scavenge the east side of Providence for blooms with which to create some of his breathtaking floral arrangements, scrawl out a descant for one of our hymns and teach it to the sopranos before the service, improvise a musical interlude, and run downstairs to accompany a hymn on the piano, only to sprint back upstairs to the choir loft to conduct the next anthem. Fred's work with his early music ensemble, Schola Cantorum, with the Museum Concerts series, with the Brown University Choir, and with his many contributions to special musical events in and near the church, have also enriched us beyond measure. We have been treated to talented soloists and ensembles in our worship services, and Fred has arranged for glorious harp, timpani, strings, and brass accompaniments for the choir on Christmas and Easter. So, Fred.
Yes.
We have several gifts to give you today as we say our farewells. The first is a book of messages from many people in the congregation expressing their gratitude for the blessings you have brought us and their good wishes for your future endeavors. I have woven some of what others say here into my reflection today, but there are many more gems here for you to peruse.
Thank you.
Our second gift is a photo of you conducting the choir, and we are going to put that up on screen now so that our remote viewers can see it. There you are, conducting the choir on a typical Sunday. And now I want to say a few words particularly about what it has been like to be in the choir during your tenure with us. We in the choir have called you an angel. Even those of us who may not believe in angels per se, perceive that your devotion to your music ministry creates an experience of transcendence for the singers rather. You hear potentialities in our voices that we don't know are there, and you find ways to elicit them. Your guidance and encouragement have helped us sing our best selves. You have made rehearsal both challenging and fun, regaling us with your wit, your unflagging cheerfulness, and the occasional salacious anecdote. You have invited each of us into harmony with others in the choir. You have helped the whole choir send forth our song to the whole congregation. For all these reasons, today's leave-taking is especially bittersweet. Our third gift to you recognizes another of your passions, and that is gardening, which has already been spoken about, but I'll say a few more words. The job of music director in the job description says nothing about beautifying the meeting house or grounds, but because of your love of growing things, you have become our official house floral designer, or as you put it, our florganist. I understand that the local dog parks are especially good places to score free floral swag. But it is not just in a literal sense that you have brought us your gardener's temperament. You have tended us all, music makers and music listeners alike, planting inspiration, providing plenty of sunshine and water, and nurturing us as we blossom into melodious flower. So, our third gift is a gift certificate to a local nursery in hopes that the seeds you plant will all bear fruit.
Thank you so much.
Finally, I have already spoken of your virtuosity as an organist, singer, pianist, and musical director. You are also perfectly capable of picking up a recorder, drum, or tambourine when we need a little extra accompaniment. But some of us think that it is time you branched out a bit, and that it would be good for you to take up the study of a new instrument. So today, we present you with this very fine kazoo. And we hope that with diligent attention to practicing, you will become not only proficient, but one of the world's finest kazooists. At its best and holiest, making or listening to music connects us to the greater mystery for which we have no name. Or maybe that name is heaven. You have always brought us into this plane, both intimate and transcendent. So Fred, may you hail the great winds urging you on. May you greet the infinite sea before you. May you sing the sky your sailor's song. Go forth with our blessings and our love.
Thank you. You're welcome. Beautifully done. Yeah. And of course, as an organist, I can accompany myself with my feet while I play the kazoo.
We have a special collection this morning for today's offering. It will benefit Project Weber Renew, a harm reduction and recovery services organization for at-risk people in Rhode Island. Project Weber Renew is the merged organization of two programs providing harm reduction, recovery, and basic needs services to men and women, including the transgender community. It was put forward for a community collection for last spring, before the pandemic, but is in even greater need as the challenges of drug use have expanded greatly during this time of COVID. So please listen now to the video message from representatives of Project Weber Renew, and of course, please give today as generously as you are able to the life and the work of this organization that shares our hopes and values for the world.
Hi, my name is Dennis Baylor. I'm the Overdose Prevention Program Director at Project Weber Renew. Now, Project Weber Renew is a small nonprofit organization. We're a peer-led organization, and we provide harm reduction services to people in need, people who are suffering from substance use disorder. I'm a man in long-term recovery. I do this work because I understand. I understand the pain, I understand the suffering, but I also understand the hope for change, because in my life, I was able to turn my life around, and I just enjoy doing what I do to show other people that recovery is possible. There's no reason to ever give up. We just want to keep them safe, keep them alive, provide them the services that they need. Until that point, they're ready to change their lives around.
Hi everybody, my name's Ashley Perry and I am the Pawtucket Program Manager here at Weber Renew. One of the most powerful things that I can think of what I do is just treating people human. I had one client who seemed like it was almost impossible to help her. She had so many agencies throughout the state that was involved in her case, and still it was so hard to get her anywhere. And one day she just told me she really wanted to go mess up, and I said, instead of that, why don't we go out and get something to eat? And I took her out to eat lunch with me, and at the end of it, she wanted to go get treatment finally. After I worked with her for over 2 years, she finally wanted to go get treatment, and I just really felt like she was waiting for somebody to treat her human.
I have 3 invitations to share this morning for additional ways to celebrate, honor, and live into our Unitarian Universalist faith this week. And the very first is about a special meeting that the Prudential Committee has called for today. And I think I might need to call an audible here. Michael Capelli, we said that the meeting was going to start at 11:45, but the service will likely not quite be over by then. So I'm going to suggest that we're going to say the meeting will start at 12, which gives you time to finish watching the service, and if you live nearby, scurry on over so that we all can be present to each other in our parking lot and have this very, very important meeting and still relish the rest of this very special service together. So please stay for the rest of the service, and then if you live nearby, hop on your bike or car and head over here to enjoy the ability to be present to each other, at least in the parking lot, but not in cars this time, as we have this very important meeting that we need to figure out motions allowing more time from the nominating committee to finish with their slate of candidates, and to extend the motion passed last year that allows the annual church spring meeting to be conducted off-site, meaning not in the meeting house. Texts of the motions were sent in a link in Friday's first 2 times, so you can easily find them there. Please gather in the parking lot at noon so we can quickly gather and complete our business. Second, don't forget that the First U online auction is live through tomorrow, Monday at noon. Not close of business, noon. There are some great items, experiences, and services up for sale or bid, family-friendly options and adult options, a whole range of interesting things. New items were even added on Friday. So even if you looked once, you probably need to look again. The link was also sent in the Friday first 2 times. Please join the fun. And lastly, an update on the Scotland pilgrimage. About 14 First U folks have signed up so far as interested in going. We have an orientation coming up for everyone who's thinking about going, and that will be Sunday, June 6th at 7 p.m., and it'll be via Zoom. That orientation will give you a chance to meet Reverend Rob Hardees, who served for 20 years as the senior minister of our flagship church in Washington, D.C. He is, I believe, one of the finest ministers of our generation and will be co-leading the trip with me. This will also give you a chance to hear more about the trip, about Scotland, which is gorgeous, and about just how much walking and fitness is required, which is decent but not crazy fitness, nothing too drastic, and about what some elements of the preparation for that journey together will include, and what some of the gifts of the experience might be for us all. I really hope you're thinking about going, and if you are, I really hope you will sign up with our church administrator, Nancy Forstrom, as soon as possible so you can be sure of a spot if you do decide to go. And now, our second hymn, Morning Hangs a Signal. As soon as I read The Art of the Fugue, I guess I should say please be seated. I haven't had anyone to say that to in so long. Please be seated, beautiful choir. As soon as I read The Art of the Fugue, a new piece by Reverend Lynn Ungar, I thought of Fred. I thought of Fred not only because it's about Bach, but also because Fred has made and shared music with us that will endure. It's amazing in the end that something so utterly ephemeral, because notes on a page are not our experience of hearing music, and what we hear and respond to so powerfully vanishes almost as soon as we hear it. Something so ephemeral can also be so impactful as to be so enduring. Bach has long been lost to this world. Thank goodness Fred is only moving on to another church, another sacred space and congregation where he will use his art to glorify God and where we may, as he has invited us, visit him. But this morning does mark an ending for us and our time together with Fred. Lynn Ungar wrote, Bach, the master, tagged the words Soli Deo Gloria, glory to God alone, onto the end of every piece he wrote, well, all except one. Contrapunctus 14 from The Art of the Fugue stops mid-measure, and his son, the composer C.P.E. Bach, appended these words, Über dieser Fuge ist der Verfasser gestorben. At this point in the fugue, the composer died. I'm not sure about glory to God alone. There is so much glory to go around. Rhubarb pie and lilacs, elephants, and mossy streams that it is hard to say what owns the glory unless you call it all God, which works for me. Take it or leave it. What captivates me is the elderly Bach, superseded in fame by his son, slipping gently into the art of the fugue, into writing pieces less for the glory of God than for the teaching of the young, which is quietly also the glory of God. I like to think of the great man in his declining years, tinkering with small melodies, turning them this way and that, building with small blocks a laborious legacy for children to practice centuries on. I like to think of how the fugue repeats and turns and leads you on around the corner to something which is the same but different, which is the nature of every journey. At this point in the fugue, the composer died, but not the fugue. It continues to ripple like the mossy stream, like the lilacs, like the great waving ears of the elephants, teaching the children, giving glory to God. The morning hangs a signal upon the mountain crest. We just sang in our hymn today about the spreading light of a new day, the eternal freshness which, thankfully, animates our lives, or as the great 20th century poet T.S. Eliot reminded us in his poem Little Gidding, to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. No matter our age or circumstances, gladness is always there for the finding and the taking. And the good gifts that Fred gave us will remain here among us. Though they were ephemeral, they were also enduring. They will continue to ripple like a mossy stream or lilacs, giving glory to God. May your path, Fred, be as rich and rewarding going forward as it has been for your time here at First U. That is our wish for you and for all of us. May freshness and gladness shape the new beginnings before us all, and may gratitude shape all that has been and all that we celebrate today. May we look backward in gratitude, and because of what we have behind us, may we look forward in hope.
We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.
Farewell, my friends, I'm bound for Canaan. I'm traveling through the wilderness. Your company has been delightful. You do not leave my mind distressed. I know it may be hard to leave you, perhaps never to meet again. But if we never have the pleasure, I hope we'll meet on Canaan's land. Farewell, my friends, I'm bound for Canaan. I'm traveling through